There was a time when Tim Hortons wasn't just a coffee shop, it was Canada itself. Every morning, millions of Canadians queued for fresh donuts baked on-site and coffee that actually tasted decent. It was the working-class living room, the place where hockey dads grabbed double-doubles before dawn shifts. By all logic, a brand this embedded in national DNA should not collapse. And yet, here we are, 2024, watching Canadians abandon Timmy's in droves, choosing McDonald's coffee over their childhood comfort. The red and white logo still dots every street corner, but the soul, that died years ago. So what actually happened to Canada's most beloved brand? For many Canadians, the first signs of trouble came in 2003, though most did not notice it immediately. That year, Tim Hortons quietly made a decision that would forever change the company's trajectory. They stopped baking their donuts in-store. Before 2003, if you walked into a Tim Hortons at 5 in the morning, you would smell fresh donuts being made by bakers who had arrived around 4 in the morning. The scent of fresh dough frying in oil was as much a part of the Tim Hortons experience as the coffee itself. That smell was not just marketing, it was authenticity. Real people making real donuts in real time. But in 2003, corporate headquarters decided to centralize production. Instead of each location making donuts from scratch, they would now receive par-baked, flash-frozen products from a massive facility in Brantford, Ontario. Employees would simply heat these pre-made donuts in store. The company tried to spin this as progress, even maintaining their always fresh slogan despite the obvious contradiction. The change was not just noticed by customers, franchise owners were furious. The cost of producing each donut tripled overnight, jumping from 5 to 9 cents per donut to around 18 cents. While that might sound negligible, multiply it by thousands of donuts per day across hundreds of locations. And you were looking at millions in additional costs passed directly to franchisees. One franchise owner in Toronto told the press at the time that franchisees were being asked to pay 3 times more for a product that was demonstrably worse, and they were expected to smile about it because it was more efficient. The quality issues were immediate. Customers began complaining about staler donuts, frosting that would peel off in sheets, and a general sense that something had changed. The distinctive Tim Hortons taste was fading, replaced by something that felt mass-produced and industrial. By 2008, frustration among franchise owners had grown so intense that they launched a class action lawsuit against the parent company. The suit claimed Tim Hortons had breached franchise agreements by forcing them to buy these inferior products at inflated prices. Though the lawsuit was eventually dismissed in 2012, it exposed the first major crack in the relationship between corporate and the people actually running the stores. But perhaps the most significant loss was not financial, it was cultural. The 4 a.m. baker arriving to prep fresh donuts was a Canadian institution in itself. These were often first-generation immigrants, working overnight shifts to support their families. They were part of the Tim Hortons story, the human element that made each location more than just another fast food joint. When they disappeared, replaced by reheating machines, something authentic disappeared with them. The change also altered the physical space of each restaurant. Where there were once baking areas, there were now freezers and microwaves. The warm, comforting smell of fresh donuts was replaced by the scent of donuts being reheated. Similar perhaps, but those who remembered the difference could tell something fundamental had changed. Still, brand loyalty masked much of this decline. Canadians had such deep emotional connections to Timmy's that they were willing to overlook these warning signs. After all, it was still their Tim Hortons, the place where they had celebrated hockey victories and commiserated over losses, where they had taken their kids for Timbits after school, where they had met friends on cold winter mornings. The loyalty remained, even as the product began its slow descent. Little did they know, these changes were just the beginning. The real devastation was yet to come. December 2014 marks the point of no return for Tim Hortons. This was when the company merged with Burger King in a massive $12.5 billion deal that created Restaurant Brands International, RBI. Behind this merger was 3G Capital, a Brazilian private equity firm notorious for its aggressive cost-cutting approach. The 3G Capital playbook is well documented across numerous industries. They acquire beloved brands with loyal customer bases, then immediately implement zero-based budgeting, a practice where every expense must be justified from zero each financial period. Nothing is sacred. No expense is assumed necessary just because it existed before. While this approach might look impressive on quarterly reports, it often guts the very things that made these brands successful in the first place. And Tim Hortons was about to become a textbook example of this destruction. Almost immediately, 3G began implementing its efficiency model. At the corporate level, hundreds of employees were laid off within weeks of the acquisition. Many had been with the company for decades. Their institutional knowledge, their understanding of what made Tim Hortons special to Canadians, walked out the door with them. One former executive who was let go in early 2015 said they gutted the place. Anyone who understood the Canadian market, anyone who pushed back on cuts that would affect quality, they were gone. It was a massacre. The new management implemented what industry insiders call supply chain markups, essentially forcing franchisees to buy all their supplies through the parent company at significantly marked up prices. Franchisees who once operated as partners were now treated as profit extraction points. A franchisee in Ottawa explained, "Before RBI, we were partners. We might disagree on things, but there was mutual respect. After the takeover, we were just ATMS for the parent company to withdraw from." The numbers tell the story. Franchisee profits plummeted while RBI's own margins soared. The company was effectively cannibalizing its own stores, extracting short-term profits while undermining the long-term health of the business. Quality control, once a hallmark of Tim Hortons, became an early casualty. Coffee that had once been consistent now varied wildly from location to location. The brewing technology, already outdated before the acquisition, was maintained well past its useful life to save costs. Maintenance schedules were extended. Training was reduced. Perhaps most bewilderingly, the company began a frantic menu expansion that confused both employees and customers. In 2019 alone, Tim Hortons launched over 60 limited-time offerings, triple the number from just 2 years earlier. From Beyond Meat burgers to plant-based eggs, yogurt bowls to tacky novelty donuts, the menu became a chaotic mess that strayed far from the simple coffee and donuts that had built the brand. A former product development executive explained, "It was madness. We'd launch a new product with almost no testing, minimal training for staff, and then yank it a few weeks later for the next shiny object. No one could keep up. Not the supply chain, not the franchisees, certainly not the customers." This menu chaos had real consequences at the store level. Employees struggled to learn new recipes every week. Food waste increased, preparation times slowed, and the core products, the coffee and donuts that customers actually wanted, suffered from neglect. Meanwhile, the relationship between corporate and franchisees deteriorated into open warfare. In 2017, a group of franchise owners formed the Great White North Franchisee Association to battle what they called intimidation and bullying from RBI. Legal battles erupted over everything from pricing to renovation requirements. One particularly telling dispute involved the company forcing franchisees to renovate their stores at costs exceeding $450,000 per location. These renovations often provided minimal return on investment, but they allowed RBI to extract fees and markups on construction materials. Franchisees who could not afford these renovations were effectively forced to sell their locations, often back to the company at discounted rates. One multi-unit franchisee who had been with the company for over 20 years said, "They are systematically destroying the business model that made Tim Hortons successful, and they are doing it with a smile on their face while telling the public everything is fine." The situation grew so dire that by 2018, over half of all Tim Hortons franchisees had joined legal actions against their parent company. What had once been a cooperative partnership had devolved into an extractive relationship where franchisees felt they were being forced to destroy their own businesses to satisfy corporate profit targets. As one franchise owner put it, "They are killing the golden goose and selling its feathers." By 2018, the consequences of these decisions became impossible to ignore. Customer perception of Tim Hortons' quality had plummeted. In a nation where Tim Hortons had once been a point of pride, it was now becoming a punchline. The coffee quality in particular saw a precipitous decline. While Tim Hortons had never claimed to offer premium coffee, it had always provided a consistent, decent cup that Canadians relied on. After 2014, that consistency vanished. Some locations served coffee that tasted burnt, others watery. Equipment maintenance suffered, training declined. Meanwhile, an ironic twist played out in the marketplace. McDonald's Canada acquired the original Tim Hortons coffee supplier after Tim Hortons changed vendors following the RBI takeover. Neither company has officially confirmed this, but many customers swear that McDonald's coffee now tastes like Tim Hortons used to, adding insult to injury for the struggling brand. A 2019 survey revealed that Tim Hortons had fallen from the 4th most trusted brand in Canada to the 50th in just 5 years, an unprecedented collapse for such an established institution. Trust had eroded. The numbers confirmed what customers were feeling. By late 2019, system-wide sales had fallen 2.9% in the 4th quarter, with a 0.3% decline for the full year, totaling $6.7 billion. While these might seem like small percentages, for a mature brand that had seen consistent growth for decades, this reversal was alarming. More concerning was the pattern quarter after quarter of slowing growth, followed by outright decline. This was not a blip, it was a trend. The cultural disconnection was perhaps even more damaging than the financial losses. Tim Hortons had always positioned itself as the working-class Canadian's coffee shop. It was where construction workers grabbed coffee at 5 a.m., where hockey teams celebrated after games, where seniors gathered for morning conversations. This positioning was not just marketing, it was authentic. The affordable prices, the unpretentious atmosphere, the community bulletin boards in every location made Tim Hortons feel like it belonged to ordinary Canadians. Under RBI, this connection frayed and then snapped. The company's attempts to move upmarket with specialty beverages and premium-priced items alienated its core working-class customer base while failing to attract the higher-end customers who preferred Starbucks or local artisan coffee shops. The community aspect suffered as well. New store designs eliminated the comfortable seating areas where seniors had gathered for morning coffee. Free refills disappeared. Even the community bulletin boards, a fixture in Tim Hortons locations for decades, were removed in many renovations and replaced by digital advertising screens. A marketing professor at the University of Toronto explained that Tim Hortons was not in the coffee business, they were in the community business. Coffee was just the vehicle. By 2020, many Canadians felt that Tim Hortons no longer represented them or their values. What had once been a point of national pride was now just another fast food chain, and not even a particularly good one at that. What happened to Tim Hortons represents the textbook destruction of a beloved brand by private equity. It's a cautionary tale playing out in real time, with lessons for any company that puts spreadsheet efficiency above customer connection. The 3G Capital approach followed a predictable pattern. Acquire a company with strong emotional connections to its customers, strip mine those connections for maximum efficiency, extract value until there is nothing left to extract, and leave behind a hollow shell trading on past reputation. The fundamental mistake was forgetting that quality was the foundation of customer emotion. People did not love Tim Hortons because of its marketing. They loved it because it delivered consistent, affordable quality in a welcoming environment. When those fundamentals disappeared, no amount of nostalgic hockey commercials could fill the void. The broader implications extend well beyond one coffee chain. Tim Hortons demonstrates how corporate greed can kill even the most beloved institutions. It shows that you can only cut costs so far before you cut the very reason customers visit in the first place. And perhaps most importantly, it illustrates how efficiency can become the enemy of excellence. The final irony is that Tim Hortons still dots every Canadian street corner. The red and white logo remains ubiquitous from Vancouver to St. John's. But behind that familiar facade lies something fundamentally changed. A brand that defined Canadian mornings now represents everything wrong with corporate cost-cutting. For generations of Canadians, Tim Hortons was not just a place to get coffee. It was part of their identity, a shared experience that transcended region, class, and age. When they lost their Tim Hortons, they lost a piece of what it meant to be Canadian. And that is the ultimate lesson of the Tim Hortons story. When a brand becomes part of a nation's identity, the responsibility goes far beyond profit margins and quarterly reports. Some things once destroyed can never be rebuilt. What other beloved brands are next? Which cultural institutions are being gutted while we are not looking? The story of Tim Hortons should serve as a warning about the true cost of putting profits over people and why emotional connections matter more than spreadsheets. Because once the soul of a brand is gone, all the marketing in the world cannot bring it back.